Hello and welcome to the show. Before we begin, apologies. Today is okay. Well, I'm not out and about. I'm actually home. Today's a Sunday, so the whole family is home. The boys are just roughhousing in the living room, so I expect to hear some noise bleeding through. Okay, so let's see. The last time I was here, we looked at how to overcome the fear of selling. That's the overall narrative that we're looking at. Then I believe I tried to tease out whether your personality can lead to heightened responses of fear when you're in socially awkward situations, meeting people at networking or trying to sell your product or your service to a total stranger. Then we also consider the question whether extroverts are better at handling fear than introverts. And let me see. Okay, well, then I also exposed you guys to a new category, or at least for most of you, a new category when it comes to looking at people on the personality spectrum. Because most people, especially those of us who are born and bred in Nigeria, we think about it in a very binary way. So there's extroverts on one end and then introverts on the other. And so I think I introduced you guys to a third class, which some people call ambiverts. That's in the business development space. So that is someone who is an introvert or has more introvert personality types, but the person can adapt and display extroverted behavior, and then the other way around, someone who is an extrovert but who is capable of adapting to or displaying introverted kind of personalities. So I think with that we wrapped up all the personality related issues, and the reason why I wanted to dispel with those really quick before we get into the tips and tricks is because I am not a fan of, or rather, I find it tragic when we're having these conversations when it comes to sales and business development, and then people bring up the personality thing. I'm a lady. I was born in the '80s. Back then, we didn't do things this way. I'm a guy, but I'm introverted. And blah 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 blah. Or I was born in May, so I'm Taurus, and Taurus people don't do this. Or I'm Sagittarius, and Sagittarius people don't do that. Or I'm Enneagram 6, and my spiritual type is this, and so we don't do that. So I think it's really tragic when we're here. We are about trying to grow our businesses and also to improve the financial prospects for our family as a whole. Because a bunch of us who are self-employed, we're hoping that at the end of our life's journey, we would have been able to build viable businesses or viable assets that will be able to hand on to our children, pass on to the next generation. So I think it's really tragic when we're sitting down here to have these conversations, and then people are talking about how I'm Enneagram, I'm extroverted, I'm introverted, I'm Taurus, and I'm Sagittarius. So that's the reason why, since I started this podcast, I've been doing my best to dispel all these issues so that we can get straight down to the business of increasing our profits and then growing our businesses. Now, some of you might say I'm being unnecessarily harsh. Maybe there's some merit to some of these things. And yes, it might be. But if we are going to take this as the sole anchor for how we build our lives, build our businesses, build our marriages, raise our children, I'm afraid we're going to be causing more harm than good, in my own opinion. But anyway, that is stuff that we have to leave for, I guess, podcasts on philosophy, medicine, and religion. So since this is a business podcast, let's head straight into the topic for today. And I promised you guys at the last episode that we're now going to start looking at specific tips and tricks for dealing with fear. Now, tip number one is to only sell valuable products. Now, those of you who listened to the last episode will remember the word value. And so, of course, there's that thing again. We have to define what value is. Okay, well, since I already defined it in the previous podcast, there's no point in defining it again. But needless to say, a valuable product would be one that solves a problem or that provides a benefit. Now, what I'm implying here by selling a valuable product is you have to understand the value proposition yourself. If you don't understand it, you can't sell it because you don't think it is valuable. Now, in the peppered catfish episodes, I pointed out how I don't like fish, I don't eat fish, I don't know the different varieties of fish. So if I was someone who was a fish monger or someone who is preparing, I'm a waiter in one of these restaurants where you serve spice, where maybe they only sell fish cuisine and stuff like that. I would be a terrible employee, a terrible salesperson in that environment. Because if the person says, "Oh, I love this item 6 on the menu, is this croaker?" I mean, I'll be looking at them because I don't know the first thing about croaker. I don't know anything about croaker or tilapia or catfish or shrimps or any of those kinds of stuff. So, selling valuable products, I guess what I'm trying to point out is that the product is not valuable in and of itself. It is valuable in a relative sense. The person who is going to be using the end product or service, does the person think they're getting a benefit from it, and does it solve a problem for the person? Now, for the person who is in that fish restaurant, then yes, it is valuable because to them, they like tilapia and catfish and shrimp. For someone like me in that restaurant, all the items on the menu are not valuable because I'd rather have suya and roasted chicken and meat varieties, the good stuff, the real good stuff. So so that's one dimension. So the person who is on the receiving end, does the person derive a benefit? Does it solve a problem for the person? Then that's what determines whether the thing is valuable. And then, of course, for you who is the salesperson, if you cannot see, if the value proposition is not obvious to you, then don't sell it. Because if you try selling that product or service, you're going to be confused. If I walk up and I say, "Here is your tilapia," and the lady looks at it and says, "Young man, this is not tilapia. I asked for tilapia. What you've given me is carp." I'm going to look back at the woman and I'm going to be confused because I don't know the difference between tilapia and carp or catfish or bonga fish or whatever. So you will be confused. I'll be confused in that situation, and you'll be confused in any sort of situation. So it's the same, whether it's life insurance or whether it's wedding photography or whether it's people who sell flowers. What are they called? Florists. So it's the same. If you don't see the value proposition, if you don't understand the value prop, you're going to be confused, and you're not going to be able to sell well. And then, of course, when you're there looking like a fool, you're going to start being scared. You'll end up contradicting yourself. Because, like I said, in this situation, I bring the dish and I say, "Here is your tilapia." And the lady says, "No, this is not tilapia. This is carp." I've ended up contradicting myself. I'm looking like a fool. I start sweating. And then, of course, I will get scared. Then it's also going to make you look like a fraud, or it's going to make you look like an idiot. Because everybody has come here thinking that this is the best fish joint in Abuja or in Lagos, and they ordered tilapia or cod, and then I come there with catfish. I'm going to look like a fraud or look like an idiot. While I'm standing there fumbling and mumbling, I'm going to start being scared. So you can see how if you don't sell products that are valuable, and when I say valuable, I mean the customer finds a definite benefit and it solves a problem, and you understand the value proposition. If all those ingredients are not there, then I'm going to end up looking like a fool and I'm going to be scared. So, another example, if I try to sell makeup, I am going to be ineffective. I'm going to be frightened and I'm going to be not confident, at least for now. The reason why is because Tavishima Ayede, I don't understand skin types. I get into the argument with my wife all the time. As far as I'm concerned, Vaseline is fine. So I buy Vaseline. I don't use Vaseline. I don't use anything because my skin is oily. Well, at least I understand that much. But for the boys, I think Vaseline is fine. And I think for my wife, Vaseline is fine because I think she has nice skin. But then she's talking about oily skin, this, that, SPF 45, ultraviolet this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm there thinking, this woman, she just wants to waste money. And okay, well, we don't argue about these things anymore. But bottom line is, I do not understand skin types and different kinds of fashion trends or how to match colors. I know very little about the feminine psyche, things like that. All these things which are really, really important and go into selling makeup. So if you were to hire someone like me without training the person, you put the person in your store and you try to get them to sell your makeup, the person, provided the person is like me, would be absolutely useless. Because somebody will come and say, "Young man, do you guys have SPF 45? and I would look at the person with my big eyes and I wouldn't know what to say. Or I might say, yes, we have SPF 45, and take the person to a shelf where I think all the SPF things are. And then lady's like, look, young man, I said SPF. Where you've taken me to, what you have here is UVF. I'm not looking for UVF. I'm looking for, sorry, I'm confused already. Anyway, let me just move on. But you get the whole point. So, if I'm going to be successful at selling catfish or makeup or whatever, then there are a couple of things that I need to learn before I start selling. So, if I want to overcome fear in selling, and if I'm going to sell valuable products for which I understand the value prop, then there are some things that I need to learn about the product or service before I start selling. If I don't learn those things, I'm going to be in situations where I'm scared and I'm looking like an idiot and I'm confused and I'm contradicting myself. So, find a valuable product. Now, how are you going to find a valuable product? A couple of things. You have to ask questions and you have to do research on a couple of basic stuff. Number one, you have to be able to figure out who is the ideal target base. So, whether it's makeup or whether it's tilapia or catfish, I need to be able to understand who is the ideal target base. Who are the customers that they're trying to chase? Number two, I'm trying to figure out what problems do these people have. I'm also trying to figure out how the product or the service solves that problem, and then I'm trying to figure out what can stop them from achieving the results. So, if I'm going to be good at selling catfish, tilapia, cod, or whatever, let's say I'm in a fancy Lagos restaurant, or maybe that's my business idea. I want to come up with a fancy fish restaurant because maybe it looks like fish people like to spend lots of money. I need to figure out who is the ideal fish person. Of course, I'm going to figure out that fish people are definitely not me, so I won't be talking in terms that endear myself to people like me, Tavishima Ayede, who does not eat fish. Then, what problems do they have? Are people going to the fish restaurant because they're looking for fine dining, or are they just trying to chill and let off steam? All these things are important. That's the reason why, like I mentioned in Makudi on the catfish scene, there are these, I don't know what to call them. Should I call them traditional establishments? Okay, maybe not traditional establishments, but these simple huts where people have alcohol and catfish and then things like that. So it's because the people who come there are trying to solve a certain kind of problem, and the problem that they're trying to solve is they've been through a rough week at work or a rough day at work. They're trying to let off steam. So for them, a bench and 2 bottles of Star with the biggest catfish you can find, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and then 4 or 5 colleagues. Everybody sits down and they enjoy themselves. That's a problem that they're trying to solve. So I need to be able to understand all those dynamics. Is going to determine how I can sell in a very informed and fearless way. Then, let's see what else. Okay, I'm sure you guys already get the gist. So before you start trying to sell anything, the answer to this question should be obvious. You need to know who the ideal person is. You need to know what kind of problems that they have, how the product or the service solves the problem, and the things that will stop them from achieving the results. That's absolutely important. I mean, I've been in one of those situations where a caterer was talking about. I was back in my wedding photography days. They were going over menus, and the woman was like, "Okay, we want this kind of soup, and it has to be done with this kind of fish." And the caterer was able to say boldly, mommy, you say this fish with this, it's not going to work well, because this kind of fish tastes like this. This kind of soup has this kind of texture. How about we try this kind of fish? And then she said it, and everybody was like, yes, that is true. We'll do like this, we'll blend it like this, we'll blend it like that. Now, for someone like me who doesn't know what's up, I know nothing about fish, the woman would have said, we want this kind of fish, and I've said, okay, fine, fantastic, would have gone with that. But because I don't know anything about fish, I don't know the kind of palette that they're trying to achieve on that day, sensory palette, the way things taste and textures and stuff, I can't give a any helpful recommendations to them. Well, anyway, let's see, 14 minutes, so let me run on. Now, like I said, before you try to sell anything, the answers should be obvious to you. And even when the answers are obvious to you, you are still going to need sales training, because subject matter expertise, knowing about the thing, that is one thing. You also need to learn about the process of selling in itself. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail here on this podcast because in this episode, because that's the whole point of the podcast. So you just keep listening to the podcast and you're going to learn more about sales philosophy, different kinds of selling frameworks, and then things like that. Now, before we round off, let's run through a couple more tips for self-reflection or product selection, because being able to sell without fear is going to involve both, just like I pointed out, you reflecting on yourself and then you also reflecting on the product. So look at your interests, look at your passions, look at what you're curious about, things you're enthusiastic about, and things that you have knowledge about. These are really, really, really important, because if you have interest, curiosity, you have the knowledge, then you're going to be confident and you're not going to be as frightful. Now, because I have a previous background in wedding photography and some media work, if you are new in the space and you have to go competing against me, let's say, or trying to provide services for let's say tourism board in Lagos. They put out a tender, they want someone to come and provide a documentary, things like that. Because I've done some work in the space, I have some knowledge in that space, and as part of my artistic flair or my native creativity, I am going to be able to make a compelling pitch at the end of the day, because I have the interest, I have the passion, I have the knowledge base, as against you who doesn't have any of those. Maybe what you do is you have the money, you've bought all the fancy equipment, and you're hoping that because you have a wonderful website, the fancy equipment, all that, you've packaged yourself well, as Nigerians like to say. So because of your packaging, you think you're going to get the deal. You might, the packaging might work, but the chances are, because I have the knowledge and the enthusiasm and all of that, all things being equal, assuming we have reasonably same websites, proposal is reasonably the same, we have the same kind of gear, stuff like that, chances are I'll get the deal and not you. However, I'd like to point out something to newbies. Those of you who are new coming into business, you just assume that passion is the main thing. But passion actually is not the main thing. Market validation or product market fit is the main thing. I'm not going to go into details about that. There are lots of episodes that I've done about passion or market validation. So once you're done listening to this, just scroll. You're looking for the title, episode titles that have either passion there or market validation there, and you see why passion is important, but passion is not the main thing. Market validation is the main thing. Market validation just means that there is demand and that there are signals from the market that this is a good idea to get into. Because you can have all the passion in the world, but if there's no signal for market demand, in other words, if people think that this thing is absolutely useless, then it is not going to fly. It is not going to work. Let's look at Nigeria right now. Native fowls, guinea fowls. So native fowls, guinea fowls. That is what should be part of our own native diet. But the thing is, kids like me, born late 70s, early 80s, we know absolutely nothing about the guinea fowl. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it tastes like. We know the Rhode Island chicken. That's the common chicken and hen and stuff that runs about. So, if you want to get into, if you're trying to roll out something based on guinea fowl, maybe you want to start trying to sell guinea fowl meat. Trying to do that in an urban center might not work, because kids like me know absolutely nothing about the guinea fowl. So you have to do your research. Maybe if you go to provincial places like Makudi, or if you try the village markets, maybe people haven't forgotten a taste for those sorts of things. So it might work there. So that's what market validation is all about. Is there any market demand? Do people think it's a good idea? Will this product move? Those are the things that you should be looking at. Then also look at your values, your ethics, your religious beliefs, things like that. They also determine the amount of fear or lack of confidence that you bring to a selling situation. Because if you're going to sell something and you have internal conflict in selling it, you're going to be fearful or not confident or not convincing. For instance, if you're a Muslim and you work for a corporate organization, a finance house, and the finance house has gambling products or a gambling app, or they sell gambling financing services or something, and they want you to sell it, well, you might be good selling it, but I guess the average Muslim will have too much internal conflict, too much angst about these things, and would be fearful or not convincing trying to sell those sorts of things, because gambling is not something that is endorsed by Islam. And of course, Islam is more, what's the word? Is it theocratic? It's more theocratic. So you're not expected to have that divide of private and public. Unlike some Christian denominations, we seem to have that divide. Like, I'm a Christian, but I'm a Christian in private. Then when I'm out in public, I can do whatever. So, with Islam being more theocratic, selling gambling products, perhaps that might be a problem for a Muslim trying to sell that because of the internal conflict and angst. Now, Christians, on the other hand, if you worked for a business, let's say you work for a bookstore or a media house, and then they want you to start selling online adult hookup subscriptions or something like that. Now, for a Christian, that might be a problem because there's some internal angst. How am I going to be selling this app? The person who calls in or walks into the store, what if the person belongs to my church? How am I going to justify selling this kind of material? Blah, blah, blah. You get the gist. So these affect the kind of confidence that we come with or the level of fear that we come into a selling situation with. And then, of course, we've spoken about skills or talents. If you're skilled or talented, then you're much more comfortable and you'll be very, very convincing. Like my wife, for instance, I mentioned that she's in the security space, that's her specialty. So if you tell her that, look, sell this product, assuming you've given her sales training, and the product is maybe courses on securities compliance or securities law, she's going to be able to sell it much more convincing than I can, because even though I am versed in the art of selling, she is the one that has the skill and the talent and the academic background. So she's going to be able to talk convincingly about it, even though I know more about how to sell. Then profitability and commission structure, we also need to know about that before we can sell without fear. Because if there's a huge payday at the end of the day, if the financial incentives are good, if it provides good motivation, then we'll be much more keen to go and sell. Let's see what else. Okay, then finally, the product itself, service quality, durability, the reputation of the vendor, all those sorts of things. There are some people that can sell. Okay, let's look at computers. There's IBM. Okay, no, people don't use IBMs these days. Okay, well, people use IBMs, but in Nigeria, I think people are mostly Mac or HP, Compaq, all those other kind of computers. So let's say you have a Apple computer, and then you have Xynox. Okay, Xynox is a Nigerian computer brand. Now, my guess is most folks would feel much more confident selling the Mac because Apple has a brand, it has a certain reputation for service quality. Mac products have a warranty, they have a certain reputation. But then Xynox is this Nigerian computer brand. Some people say it works, some people say it doesn't work. There was this time that I think was it CBN or the Ministry of Finance in Nigeria, in Abuja, all the computers were secured. A contract was secured for the computers. Some people said it worked, some people say it didn't work. But anyway, it's not something that I can talk about reliably. This is just side gist. Okay, well, I shouldn't be spreading side gist on the podcast, but you get my point. There are some kinds of products that you beat your chest and you sell it with your full chest and say that, look, you know what? I stand behind this. This is Apple. This is this. This is that. This is Binatone. They've been around for 62 years in the Nigerian market. Blah 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 blah. So that sort of thing. If you're trying to sell something that the service quality is not there, is it durable? You don't know. Their reputation is it sketchy? Of course, you're going to be scared and not confident trying to sell those things. So, bottom line is the first step. If you want to overcome fear in selling, then believe in what you sell, or only sell what you believe in. Otherwise, you're going to be scared and you are going to be unconvincing. So, thank you very much for your time and attention. Remember to connect with me on WhatsApp. The number is 080-6466-2140. The country code is +234 for those of you hitting me up outside the shores of Nigeria. And connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the socials where I spend most of my time. My name is Tavishima Ayede. I'm the host of the podcast. And you can get the correct spelling of my name from the link where you're currently listening to this episode. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording, where we should continue with tips and tricks about how to sell without fear.